of the United States of America, and to all for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for, Lord, just the blessing that it is to be in Blissfield. We thank you for these that serve our community. We pray that as they move through their meeting tonight, Lord, that you would just guide, direct. And Lord, we just pray that you would just watch over, minister to needs. And we ask this in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, sir. Roll call, please.
Mike Gunner,
Here.
Gwen Dusa,
Here.
Bill Gritzmaker, Sherry Luce,
Here.
Ken Nichols,
Here.
Eric Rogers,
Here.
Timothy Waters.
Move on to approval of the minutes from March 10th, regular meeting.
I move to approve the minutes of March 10th, 2025 as presented. I'll support.
Motion by the secretary to approve the minutes of March 10th, 2025 as presented. Any discussion?
You better jump on quick if he wants to get in there.
We'll be both moving.
No corrections, Lisa, call roll.
Ken,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yeah.
Gwen,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes. Motion carries. Up next are the presentations and communications. We do have a public hearing to hold regarding the ordinance amendments and repeals, much of parking regulations, part of our cleaning up of the ordinances. There are a few additions and the from one ordinance number to another. So, Danielle, you want to, go ahead and.
This is a formal public hearing for the ordinances, so we should have a motion to open the public hearing at stated time, and then we'll open the floor to anybody that would like to speak, and then we'll have a motion to close once everybody has said what they would like to.
I move council to open the public hearing at 6:04. Regarding the work parking ordinances.
I motion Tim, secretary, to open up the public hearing regarding ordinance amendments and repeals for traffic control at 6:04 p.m. Please call roll.
Gwen,
Yeah.
Eric,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Sherry, Tim,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes. Motion carries. Anybody to address council regarding the minutes? Please.
Hello, council. James Einstein. This is a project I started with, well, many of you with, and I saw the proposed amendments tonight. And I want to take an opportunity to say, I think you're missing quite a golden opportunity to really rewrite these ordinances. I don't think any of this language clarifies the parking situation in and around the village. One of your whereas seeks to clarify the language of as advertised or as marked could clear up all of this. You've got signs all through the village as to where you can and cannot park. Those signs should be maintained. And I don't think it's do any good to clarify the ordinances. You also have the opportunity to improve upon these ordinances. I was looking at the South Lane ordinance, parking for more than 3 hours in one spot prohibited, parking between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. prohibited. I think those are both very arbitrary. They don't really provide much benefit to the village. I think that's what ordinances or these laws should do. They should set a minimum standard of improvement or value to the village. I don't think either of those two do that. I can't see any reason to prohibit parking between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m., although I can see a number of reasons to allow for it. The 3 hours, I would ask how that is to be enforced. it seems to me it's a completely arbitrary number. I don't know if you've got police out there looking for cars parked for more than 3 hours. I don't think that's the best use of police time. I do understand being a DDA member. I do understand the need for parking up front on Main Street. Oftentimes, people don't want to park behind the businesses or across 223. I think that could be accomplished with more signs. What do we call that? Wayfinding signs. That's a big thing. That again, that would add value to the village and to the residents. So before you approve these ordinance amendments, I would urge you to take your time, vet each and every one of them, understand why it is you're making this change or improvement, how it adds value, because these set a minimum standard. So you want to increase the value or augment the standard, not detract from it. So again, I think you could get this all cleared up with very simple words. As marked. Where there's signs, you can park or can't park. And I think that would do this ordinance a ton of justice. And if you take that sort of concept and apply it across some other ordinances, I think you get very far with the ordinance revisions. So that's it. Is there any questions from council on my thoughts?
I do.
Go ahead, Gwen.
When you're saying this part here, James, in the very beginning, you were saying the rewrite of the ordinances, you're stating, essentially, where it says to whereas, instead of going into all of the language, essentially, you're just stating in layman's terms, basically where things are marked, just follow the signage.
Yeah, I didn't print out all the ordinances, I just printed out a few pages, but there's one that said like 78 feet from Beagle or north on
Maple to.
Beagle, right?
Mhm.
Again, as marked,
Understand?
right? You can have parking permission or non-permission, non-permitted signs. If you think it's unclear, put up parking permitted, and if not, no parking allowed.
Versus having the changes to,
Versus having it written in long form
With a lot
in the
of words.
ordinance that does not clarify or do a driver any good, a visitor any good to our village. If they're not gonna check the ordinances before coming, so I think better signage, reduce the ordinance. Move on.
I think the ordinances are what underlies the signage. So we don't just willy-nilly put signs up anywhere. So we have to know where we want the signs, and I think that's the purpose for the ordinances, and it's part of the purpose of the lawyer type language. I'm all opposed to simplifying it,
Right.
but we have to have some sort of foundation for the signage, and I think that's why it's like this, it's written the way that it is.
So what would be the foundation of parking, non-prohibited parking between 2 AM and 5 AM?
All I'm saying,
No, I'm just.
I don't- I get it.
So you're applying different levels of arbitration to the ordinance.
no, I'm not trying to argue with what you're saying. I'm giving you a reason as to
Oh, right.
why the signs are where they are, because there needs to be some sort of definition. And then the signs follow the definitions of the ordinances.
Yeah, and that goes back to my comment about fully vetting each and every one of these.
Sure.
So that's a fair option.
Okay.
Vet them fully before you approve these ordinance changes. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah.
Let me add, I wanted to let you guys know that, what James is proposing about the keeping it simple and just identifying the signs is actually what I wanted to do with this ordinance when I first looked at it. But we're under general village law, which says that we have to by ordinance identify those parking restrictions. So because we're a general law village, we can't be generic with the signage. We have to have the ordinance tied to it. That was my preference as well.
Okay,
And then I
looked at
Because-
other larger municipalities and
so if we're a home rule village, cities, they have different rules than us
Right.
because I asked literally the things you're asking are what I asked as well. So I'm like, well, how come the city of Tecumseh can go put up a sign, but because they're a city, they fall under different
Okay.
regulations under state, the way they're structured under state law. And then the 2 to 3, or I'm sorry, the 2 to 5 AM thing, I was not here when that was instituted, so I obviously don't have firsthand knowledge, but my understanding that that was put in place because of the residential units above the downtown parking, so that it wasn't restricting the businesses and for, like traffic flow, they weren't parked out there for 24 hours a day all the time when they're in the residence. That kind of forces them to hopefully go use the back parking lots. But again, that's my understanding,
And for maintenance,
not here.
snow removal, et cetera, that's the time they try to get, that's the first thing they did, so. A lot of municipalities do 2 to 5 AM, the entire village, you know, I think Deerfield, I believe Adrian, the same way, you can't park anywhere. On any side street, you know, overnight, so I think. Trying to be lenient and, you know, allow residents to utilize the on-street parking is great. But a lot of it, and going back down to the winter maintenance, et cetera, you know, new collection, that sort of thing. On top of, you know, we continue to get the complaints of all business owners are, you know, utilizing the on-street parking where they should, you know, be allowing the customers to do that. I think that's gonna help minimize that as well.
Yeah, as far as snow removal, most northern cities have dates or a time frame throughout the year. So you might want to look into that if 2 to 5 is your designated time for snow removal. I think snow removal happens in this village when snow is sort of finished falling, has been my experience. So to target 2 to 5, I think is fairly difficult for simple snow removal, so. Again, fully vet those few arbitrary issues, and I think you'll be successful in your audience. Thanks.
Sir.
Was there something else, James, you said you were gonna say something up there? I thought there was something else you were gonna say after the ordinance, you said, and something else. Not, okay, misunderstood. Okay.
Right.
That's all right, that's all right. Thank you.
Anyone else for the public hearing regarding the ordinance amendments or repeals for parking? Okay, that will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on.
I'll support.
Or Sherry, second here, to close the public hearing regarding ordinance amendments repeals for the traffic control. Please call roll.
I'm gonna record that at 6:12 if that's okay.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Gwen?
Yeah.
Tim?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes, motion carries. All right, up next would be to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting as presented.
I'll move to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll support.
Go on, second, Eric. To approve the agenda as presented, any discussion? Any changes? Not least call roll.
Tim?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Gwen?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes, motion carries. Up next be public comment. Anybody cares to address council regarding? We just ask that you approach the podium, state your name for the record. Nobody? Great. Move on to unfinished business. Anyone? No? Mr. Barrett?
I have new business.
Okay.
We'll let you know.
All right, move on to business. We'll just go along the line here. First one is the ordinance amending chapter 55 for the DPW lot. Danielle, or again, much like James alluded to, let's kind of go through each one. I don't want to drag it out, but let's just be crystal clear on what we're trying to accomplish here, at least.
Yeah, so 55 is gonna be the bulk. Everything after this is repealed because it's being moved into 55. So I try, it's a little bit weird when we're merging ordinances, but The highlighted sections are brand new, completely added, not in the ordinance in any of these chapters. So we've got the general provisions, which talks about the violations and penalties when it's effective, kind of your basic ordinance things. The DPW lot is completely new. We're proposing that it's no parking in the DPW lot. I do want to notate there would be an exception for the 188 parking space, and that would be utilized for the depot. And then they do have a parking spot on their lot completely that would be unaffected. It's kind of over by their building and the guardrail. But the reason we're requesting this change is we've had an increase in people parking in that area, and our DPW staff needs access to get in and out of there safely and quickly, efficiently, depending on what they're responding to. And one of the things we talked about is, or one of the questions, so I just want to bring it up, is why we don't put a time limit on that. And that's because DPW is really on call all the time. So we never know when they're going to be called in for an emergency, and probably 90% of the time outside of their normal working hours, it would be okay. But I don't know, there's no way to anticipate that 10% that it wouldn't be. And then the other new section is Union Street. We are proposing that there be parking on the north side only. It would be prohibited on the south side. And the reason that we're proposing this is just with people parked on both sides of the road, which happens all the time during the day. It's very hard to get through there with a plow truck and or emergency services. I know that Chief Greenleaf and Chief Rucci are both here. They can talk to you more specifically about the emergency services aspect. But I know, and Brent is here with DPW, I know plowing and getting through is just very hard to do so. We did do a public notice for this. I talked to the post office directly. I talked to Stitches and Sons in the Historical Society, if you guys want to know about that too. And then the rest of it, there's some strike throughs on Jefferson, and it's getting rid of like the now therefore it ordains kind of extra stuff that is not needed. But the rest of it is existing ordinance the way it is. So I know one of the comments we just received from James was the weird like 78 feet. I left those things. If you guys moving forward want me to clean those things up, I'm more than happy to do that. But thus far, when I've done ordinance amendments, I've kind of left what's existing there because I was not a part of that discussion, and I don't know the justification or reason that it was in place. So I would look to you guys for direction if you're wanting to make changes to that. I don't myself want to decide what's best for the whole village. But if you guys have more specific questions about any of this, any of the four of us that I talked about can help address those.
I guess for the record, Chief Rucci, would you mind coming and, or up front and just explaining, the rationale, so just so the public can hear from your perspective about
Sure.
Union Street?
Good evening, council. My name is Dale Frucci, Fire Chief here at Blissfield Township Fire Department. I was invited to be here tonight for this ordinance. As far as the fire department side, we adapt and overcome whatever we're offered, you know. We cannot tell you what time a fire is gonna be. We cannot tell you what time a medical is gonna be. So to predict that, it's unforeseen for us. So when we show up on scene, we're gonna do the best we can, right? We're gonna get in, we're gonna try to treat the emergency the fastest and the most efficient that we can. Obviously, if there's no vehicles there, it's gonna make our life a lot simpler, especially with all the trucks coming in. But once we do come in, there is vehicles parked in the way. We're just, obviously 90% of the time, we're gonna shut the streets down. But when we park our trucks, whoever's parked there is not gonna be able to get out. We're gonna be stretching hoses, and we're gonna have trucks all over the place. We're gonna probably have mutual aid coming from other departments. So they will be coming in, so if a car is there, they're gonna be locked in, they're not gonna be allowed to leave. So that's one thing to think about there. But as far as being able to waive one way or the other for the council, this is what we deal with every day, you know. We have to deal with what we're thrown at that time and period, because we just don't know when this incident may happen.
But if it were simply one side of the street parking only, that would make it more accessible for you.
Sure, it definitely would help, you know, if there's not cars on both sides, yes, it would definitely help. I will give you that. So it seems like the trucks are getting bigger instead of smaller anymore, so it's making it more difficult for us to maneuver around. Obviously, if we do have more room to swing, yes, it will make our lives easier.
And obviously the same perspective, if something were to occur down at the historical, museum or the DPW or that end of that area of town as well.
Sure.
That limited parking would be,
It would definitely help us, yes, I will say that.
thank you.
Any other questions for me?
Just the, I was gonna bring this up a little later, but I can bring it up now. Currently on Pearl Street from Union to the dead end portion, they do park on both sides of that street as well. And I know in our ordinances that we're changing tonight, there's a street over here on the other side of town, Franklin, that is being basically parking only on one side. It's taking away the parking on the south side of Franklin Street. I'm just because of the dead end nature and the narrowness of that road as well. It's similar to what you just spoke about with Union Street.
The dead end streets are a lot more difficult. I know we had a fire out there on Pearl Street, not too, well, it's been a few years now.
Yeah, true.
Time flies anymore. That was very difficult, because once you get back in there, you're locked in. Nobody can get in or out, and it's very difficult for our trucks to get in and out of there, especially if we have other trucks coming. It locks everything down hard, because those dead ends, there's just no room to maneuver.
Anything else for chief? Thank you.
Right, could you pop up and do the same thing? However, help DPW.
Castle Village. Yeah, on Union Street, I don't think we had a problem with we do. I think the post office combined it, the carriers, I brought a lot more people, a lot more employees there, but it is hard to plow, especially snow. Snow is real tight, the guys struggle to get through there, especially if we have to put the one-way blade on. It's real tight, you can't hardly get through there. On the DPW side, there's been, a lot more going on, which is great down there but there's people parked all over. You just wanna be, proactive, so it doesn't happen, and we don't have an accident or bang. Bringing the leaf truck and big equipment in there, it's really tight at times, there's cars parked. I have snaps, some pictures and stuff, they'll be parked. Just basically, they'll come in and park straight with the railroad tracks, and there'll be some parallel, and I got some pictures, you can't get trucks out.
You're talking specifically about the.
Yeah, there's people parked.
that area right now. Oh, Chief Green, would you mind putting in your 2 cents as well?
Well, obviously, my vehicles aren't nearly as big as the DPW fire department. And I've heard their concerns over the years. We've on occasion had some vendors with plow trucks and that sort of thing. Obviously, we want to avoid that. We're trying to balance the convenience of the residents with that of public safety. And it's a struggle, it's a tightrope, and that's a perfect example. But I think the objective here is to do what's in the best interest of the public safety full time. And I know getting those trucks in and out, I don't know how they make that turn from Pearl to Union or vice versa with some of the equipment that they do have. And those homes along in that area are very old. And Mike can probably speak to the fire side of that better than I could, but obviously when you've got older homes like that, the possibility of them going up faster increases. So it's just a public safety issue. And I think the objective here is to do what we can as a village to make that residents are as safe as possible. Reason, obviously. So.
I had a question about if we move the parking from the depot over to the parking lot. Should we put some kind of crosswalk markings for people? To let those that are going up and down Lane Street realize there might be more people walking across Lane Street?
Well, the crosswalk would be at the corner there, and crosswalk should be ADA compliant with all of that, and I don't know that we're looking to add additional sidewalk there. So I would recommend if they're wanting a crosswalk that they would walk it down to where the light is right there at 223 and Lane, cross over and come back up. Otherwise, if they're wanting the fastest route, then they can cut across without the crosswalk.
It's not that big a difference.
Yeah.
That was
It's
just a
not-
question.
Yeah,
Nobody said anything to me. I just was thinking about it.
yeah, no,
So I mean, they can walk down to the corners, which is already marked, so.
and plowed already. DPW, right, yeah, they plowed that already and keep it clear in the winter, so.
Would there be an issue as far as the DPW slash Historical Society Museum? If there were things to drop off at the depot, at the old depot, that's not an issue, drop it off, whatever it is, and then go ahead and park the vehicle, that would still be okay to do? Or is that incorrect in that assumption?
Well, so what I would say is that we're not trying to be difficult if they're dropping something off and then moving across the street.
There's no
We're
issue with that.
reasonable, we're not, I don't see any issue with that. That being said, the ordinance doesn't say that because it's one of those give an inch, take a mile kind of, we don't want it to be a habit where then every time they're saying, oh, I'm dropping something off. If they're truly dropping off and then relocating, not an issue. If it becomes where they're abusing it, that's where we're gonna have the concern. And again, we just want that to be open, so that we can get in and out of there to do our operations. We're not trying to create a difficulty or place a burden on anybody at all.
No, there's a residence in that area as well. Does that affect this resident, the resident at all down?
So the resident also cannot park on our DPW lot if this goes into effect. They do not currently. They park in the railroad right of way. My understanding is they have permission from the railroad to do that. We can't enforce who uses the railroad right of
Because
way.
that's a right of way.
Correct. It would be between the railroad and that resident or that individual.
I didn't realize that. Thank you.
Yes.
That verifies that.
What is the footage of that easement?
I don't know that off the top of my head. It's about a car weight,
I think it's 22 feet.
give
off
or
the center.
take a little bit.
22 off the 65 on the center of the. There is concrete stakes there that they got there.
And was there something, Danielle, that you alluded to earlier that you've heard from people at the Historical Society?
I just wanted you guys to know, so because they're the most affected, I did send this to Connie, who's my historical society contact. I don't, I know there's others, but, so we had a lot of discussion with her. So, and again, they understood they could use a lot. They really wanted that. They have a parking space that they can use for loading, unloading. She specifically carries a ton of stuff in. I'm not saying she's the only one, but that was one of her concerns. They can continue to use that. That's fully on their lot. And then we'll mark that, Brent or one of the DPW guys is gonna get that ADA spot marked out and they'll continue to use that. So I just put them on notice and communicated with them. I also communicated with Stitches and Stems because I did not, well, one, they're right there also, but them having just moved in, I didn't want them to feel like we were saying, oh, you moved in, here, we're counting this ordinance because of it. So I went and talked to Robert and Jen about it. They actually park across the street and then walk over. Their delivery drivers do use the railroad right of way, but my understanding from them is they talk to the railroad. So that's, again, that's between the railroad and them, but they were good with the ordinance change as well. And then we did specifically talk to the post office because I think they're going to be the most affected by Union Street because my understanding is that is most of their employees. So they were upset with the change. I did propose a couple potential resolutions or solutions, I guess. I did let them know that they're more than welcome to use any of our 3 parking lots. Obviously that is a block walk to and from work when they get out. I had recommended that maybe they reach out to the funeral home across the street to see if they would allow them to use that parking lot when there's not a service. And then I recommended the church as well. They weren't super in favor of doing that. I will say I reached out to the church myself. I talked to one of the individuals there who did not think it would be a problem for them to park during the week. However, had asked me to speak to the priest specifically. I left him a message last week, but I've not heard back yet.
And then one more thing, if you wouldn't mind clarifying for me. It's the part where you're stating, because James was making obviously some valid points that you were in agreement with. But again, because we have the general law, this is why we have to have the ordinances in such a, addressed in such a manner. And from that being addressed with the ordinances, then we go to the appropriate signage, which we alluded to earlier.
Correct.
And so,
Yeah, so general village law, that's the form of, we are general village government, so that's the structure that we're established under. And state law gives us our authority and powers and tells us how we can move forward with those and do things, which is why we would have to have parking regulations by ordinance. And then the sign is gonna be, because James is absolutely right, people visiting are not gonna come to our ordinance and be like, where can I park in this town?
right, right.
But nor our residents probably, I mean, nobody, I don't think wants to read our ordinance, if they're not.
So the appropriate, once, once the ordinance goes into effect, then the appropriate signage will be placed there.
Correct, yes.
If I might add,
Mhm.
I agree with James, believe me, it would make enforcement a heck of a lot easier if I had one ordinance to look at. One ordinance number to write on a ticket instead of having to do research if I've got a parking violation and figure out what ordinance number I'm gonna use on the citation. So, in that respect, yeah, I'm totally on board with what James had to say, and I asked Daniel about that when we were looking at this, and again, we can't because we're a village, versus, you know, like in the city of Detroit, we had one ordinance that said no parking in prohibited areas, where it's posted. One ordinance number covered the whole city. It's ironic that I come to a town that's what? 2% of the size of the city of Detroit, we gotta have, you
Yeah,
know, 20 ordinances to cover what the city of Detroit did with one, so. It is ironic, but, no, I agree with James 100%, it just unfortunately, like Danielle said, state law doesn't allow it under circumstances. And, to the other point with the downtown parking. From time to time, we've had complaints with, residents parking out there.
the 2 to 5.
The 2 to 5, and that's my understanding historically when Jim was here, was the reason that was in effect, because I asked the very same question, why do you prohibit parking 2 to 5? And it was to prevent residents from parking out there to the detriment of our patrons to our downtown business. So that was the reason I was given, because I asked the very same question when I got here in 2014, so.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Hey, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Well, besides the Union Street, we're talking about the parking lot downtown here, across from the DPW. The one thing I would ask to consider is that parking lot is a little bit of a different animal compared to what Union Street is. We did have a fire down here at Cantrell's a couple of years ago. It made it very difficult in that parking lot because there's cars parked in there. Because we had to fight that fire from the backside of those buildings. We were not allowed to operate from the front on 223 because of all the big power lines out front. So that hindered us to put our ladder truck up to be able to fight that fire. I had Madison here, they parked on the backside. We did have to manipulate back there for some cars, be able to put that truck in a certain spot that would park there overnight because it did happen in the evening. But that's something to consider too, is maybe possibly thinking about a fire lane or something on the outside of the parking lot. Leave some lots that are empty, because if we do have to fight a fire either at Cantrell's or, you know, you have the railroad club, I believe, there, and then the. Yes, the poultry place there. So those would be a consideration, all of it would be have to fight those fires from the rear of the building. We would be able to do some from the front, but if it was very involved, like a lot of us have seen City of Adrian. They had a big fire there, they were attacking for all different directions on that. If we did have something like that here, that would be a tough situation for us. So something to maybe consider on that one.
So, go ahead.
The Burnout Court is a
Well,
little
let's get
confusing.
let's get through,
Okay.
yeah, we're done the first one.
Well, that is part of, it's all, or I guess I'm not sure how you're doing it exactly. Sorry.
You don't wanna go through each one individually?
Well, it's however you want to do it,
Yeah,
because it's all in 55 now.
Right.
So I didn't know, like if you, so go to page 13 of your packet. It might be easier to look at each article instead of looking at each ordinance. So general provisions, if we. And again, this is up to you guys, but that's how I would recommend to do it. If you have any comments, questions there, then go to Bachmeyer parking lot and so on, if that's okay with you guys. Because after that, it'll just be, if this goes through, then I'm just gonna recommend you repeal because we've amended it all into this section, this chapter.
Regarding DPW, like Brent alluded to, obviously the historical society is a lot more successful, a lot busier, which is great. But we've been talking about this for a couple years previously, you know, regarding the railroad right away and cars parking there, blocking, et cetera. So, you know, with it being busier down there. We do have a great lot that's underutilized there across the street. I think that's probably the best solution there. Not that I like walking any more than anybody else, but it is what it is. So we want to go through and then make our motions as we go through each section. Does that work for you guys? And then Danielle, you'll come back later and repeal or anything else or do it all separate. Take it out of there.
Depends what you guys do on the repeals, because I don't want to repeal them until we have the new ordinance going in place.
Can you give an example, Danielle, what you're referring to?
Yes,
That
so
would be helpful.
chapter 55. It has all the sections in it, so then if you go, like, so that's, we're on new business item number 1. New business item number 2 is chapter 56, which is South Monroe Street. That would just be repealed because I've put it into this chapter 55 and it's in your packet, it's under, on page 15. So it's Article X, Monroe Street. So I've literally taken it from a different chapter and just copied it into this new one. So now, and this is, like Chief kind of said this, when they're looking for an ordinance to write a violation, he knows I'm gonna go to 55 and then I'm gonna find the appropriate street.
Which one is 55?
Yes. So if you guys do not approve chapter 55, or let's say you have me make changes and bring it back to you, then I'm gonna tell you, don't do anything with new business items 2 through a lot.
10.
I don't even know, because we
10.
need to keep those in place until the new chapter 55 is approved. Otherwise, you're repealing ordinances that we actually need. So I would think we're gonna spend the majority of our time on 55. And then kind of go from there, how we're moving forward.
Okay, so then I guess questions would be pertinent for any of the sections. Once,
Yeah, and that's what I would probably just start right in on chapter 55, article 1, general provisions. Or like, do you guys are you good with that section? Do you have questions? Do you have changes? And then we'll go to article 2 and so on.
does it need to reference our new civil infraction ordinance?
It does, so it says that it'll be a civil infraction under chapter 1.
Chapter 1, okay,
Yeah,
so that's
so-
the one that copies
yes.
the, right, okay. The fines and.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
55.001 covers that.
Alright, so let's go through, we talked public works, article 5. Anyone else comments on that one? Sorry, page
With you there,
14.
page 14, yeah,
Yep.
okay. Okay. I'm with you.
Page 16 would be the Union Street discussion. And just clarifying, so that would be from the post office all the way down to Pearl Street on that old post office side. Everybody clear on that one? Anything else underneath would just be repealed and moved to 55. So Eric, if you have questions on
I did.
or not, or whatever.
I had talked to Danielle about this earlier today, but our court is a little confusing in the way that it is.
What page is that, Eric?
It's on page
14.
14, yes.
Thank you.
Because it basically, if you look at or read it and then look at the pictures, the maps that I did earlier today.
Mhm.
It only covers the intersection of North Monroe and Bernat Court. 20 feet in, and then it covers basically the three corners, the northwest corner, the very southern corner, which is a big horseshoe shaped. And that is all, but Danielle, there's something else in there too that you talked about earlier before our meeting.
So Brent actually, right before the meeting, ran over there for me. Thank you, Brent. There's actually signage on the inside side, all the way around of Bernat Court that says no parking. So it seems like we have that in place with the signs. We should amend the ordinance just to say, identify that.
To keep it consistent.
Correct.
I
Yes.
thought I thought we had discussed that a little while ago, because again, it's about the fire trucks, the garbage trucks, et cetera, making the curves, the bends. And then we did talk about the inside being no parking, so I'm, for some reason, remembering at one point we did have an ordinance that negated any parking on the inside circle of Bernat Court.
And you may have, it may have just not been recorded. I'm not sure, but the way under the ordinances now, it's not identified. But again, I would just, if you guys do approve this, I would approve it with me amending. And I can very easily just add something that says no parking on the inside curb of Bernat Court.
And the 20 feet, I guess, is a good point, because are all of our intersections consistent, you know, do we have, is it a 20 foot? That we require no parking, is it 25, or what is it, because that seems like it should be consistent.
Yeah, I don't know what it is from intersections because that's gonna be under state law for the most part. I think that, and I do agree with James, there's some weird, and you guys. I keep going back to James because he first brought it up, but some of these 20 feet, like, we're not gonna go out there and probably measure that. I don't know.
It's
weird.
state law.
But
Yeah.
it's 20 feet from.
Okay, then there we go.
From the intersection.
So really, we don't even have to have that, because we can be more restrictive than state law, we can't be less or the same. But I think that was maybe put in there because it is wider there, so we do allow parking on Bernat Court when you're outside of the 20 feet there. You can park there before you kind of get back in there. So I think that's why they identified it that way, but I'm not 100%.
Well, we just don't want to block the stop sign, we want to block hydrants, and intersections need the visual.
In the state law, it addresses that, it's 15 feet from fire hydrants. 20 feet from crosswalks, if there's no crosswalk, it's 50 feet in the intersection. So it's very complex. So, much like our ordinances.
And a lot of these have just boiled down to being added due to historical issues that we've addressed, but yeah, a lot of it was.
So I do
It may
think
not be
this-
crystal clear, but it makes
This
sense.
section could be clarified by just simply putting no parking on either side of the curbs throughout Bernat Court, no parking on the inside curb of Bernat Court. I didn't change some of the existing things because again, I wasn't here for that, so I didn't want to just go do that. If that's what you guys want me to do, moving forward, more than happy to do that. But I just wasn't sure, I guess, the direction on that.
I think it would simplify it.
I absolutely do as well.
That's something, so Danielle, you're saying, at this time, we have to leave in the 20 feet for, the A, B, C, or, yeah, the A, B, and C there for the Bernat Court. We can't take those out now, you think, or you just can't?
You could, but your motion would be to, approve the ordinance with the following amendments, and then you'd identify whatever those are. Or you could say, Danielle, go back and make these changes and bring it back to us. If I do that, it won't be at the next meeting because I would have to re-advertise, we'd have to hold another public hearing. because the ordinance should be adopted within 24 hours of the public hearing.
Gotcha.
Not a big deal. I'm more than happy to do that. If you guys end up having a lot of amendments, that's in fact what I would encourage you to do. And the reason I say that is because if you have a lot of amendments, I think it would be good for our residents to have the opportunity to view those amendments and make sure that they don't have any additional comments. Because there may be a resident who looked at this and said, I'm not affected, I don't have any comments, but if we make a change, it may impact them differently. So I just think it would be better to give them that additional opportunity. But ultimately, either way is correct and it's up to you guys as always.
Because as this is written right now under ABC, it doesn't even indicate that there's any signage in there, that there's no parking on the inner circle, correct?
Correct. Yeah, it's just talking about the curves.
So that has to be changed anyway.
Yes. And if you're making just a minor amendment to identify the signs, I would do it tonight, but I think that Eric's gonna bring up some more things, so I'm anticipating to have more speeches.
Yes, yes, I am.
Okay, here we go, that may answer some questions.
So I guess, move direction, I definitely need to add to Article, 4, sorry, my numbers messed up. The inside, no parking, do you want me to also amend the curb, just say the curbs and take out the 20 feet?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
we'll make notes so I know. Okay, any other changes to section 4 or just those two?
I think just those two, the way I understand it.
Okay.
Franklin Street, 55601, that's existing, correct?
Correct. I think that's straightforward unless you guys have changes or questions. And then Jefferson Street, I'm kind of moving on, I guess, so you guys stopped me in that. There's a lot there now. So right now we have 2-hour parking right outside of the office here on Jefferson. We're proposing to get rid of that and eliminate it. And then there's currently the intersection of Jefferson Street and Gibson shall be established as a 4-way stop. I just left that part as existing. I just took out all the other jumbled part of that.
Isn't that already a 4-way stop?
Correct, yes,
Okay.
that's existing.
Alright.
But it just, if you read that 55701, there's some other parts in there that I just proposed to strike because it's. we don't need it.
Stop, I didn't know if I didn't.
Well, like the Jefferson Street one above,
Right.
that was right before the physical therapy clinic for the ins and outs, because people would come and go, and people were parking there, you know, all day long. So it was a convenience thing, it was added in there to try to help the business, and now that they're moved, makes sense to get rid of it.
That was my understanding as well. You guys are good with that section? So Article 8 is South Main Street. And this is no more than 3 hours and really downtown.
Is that posted right now?
I know the 2 to 5 is posted, does it say? 3 hour from 223 to Jefferson on South Main Street? Does it say anything about 3 hours? I don't think that it
Cover
does.
block.
Yeah,
No, just
I'm sure it's-
parking between 25.
yeah,
What is the 3-hour time limits origin?
that, my understanding was both these sections 801 and 802 were from the residential units. So that they weren't, if they lived upstairs, they weren't parking in a spot that could be used by somebody visiting one of the downtown shops or restaurants. But I don't know that for
Business
sure.
owners too,
Yes, yeah, probably,
parking in front of their business, all right in front of somebody else's business.
yeah. But again, that's existing. I wasn't part of that. That's just my understanding.
I think it boils down to, again, we're not gonna have, police have 100 better things to do than sit there and write parking tickets for South Lane Street. But I think it makes the issues that we've had more cognizant of that
Yes.
people, you know, whether it's a business owner parking out front all day, or whether it's a resident parking out front all day. Once we get the complaints, then we can hopefully address it with them, and if not, then we've got the next step written. that we
It
can
won't be the police
address.
technology, it'll be somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we have the ordinance in place and the proper signage to follow up with it, it'll make things a little bit more clear for everyone.
Wouldn't it be maybe better to have for the landlords, for us to say to the landlords that their tenants cannot park in front, park downtown. They must park, they and their guests must park in the back lots. If a business owner wants to park in front of his own store and stop customers from having a convenience, and that should be his prerogative. Doesn't make sense.
But if they're parking in front of somebody else's business, then there's an issue.
And how are we gonna determine?
And how we get
which
Yeah.
are longer and which don't?
Yeah.
It comes on enforcement.
I think it's unenforceable when it was for 3 hours. You guys go through a mark?
So what will happen is that.
Oh, you're talking about 3 hour time limit. not
Yes.
2 to 5.
Not the 2 to 5.
No, actually, there's a Michigan State Supreme Court case that prohibits us from marking tires. It said it was an unlawful search and seizure.
You might as well get rid of that. If we can't enforce it, there's no reason to have it.
Would if one person sees a business owner and they've been there for 5 hours, could they not call the police and say, so-and-so has been sitting at their, their parking spot for 5 hours? If it's just, that would be just hearsay, or would that not be enforceable?
It's a civil infraction and there has to be a complainant, and if it's not the officer, then the person calling would have to be the one to test the ticket. They would actually have to sign the ticket, and the person goes to court. The person who made the complaint would have to be the one to go to court.
And they would have to be able to prove it.
So, yeah, and then they got to
That's not.
prove it. Yeah,
Sorry.
I know, as far as allowing certain people to park in certain places, that becomes a nightmare for us to try and figure out.
No, I get that part. I'm just saying, some businesses have stated that they get very frustrated with other business owners that they park at those spots for a significant amount of time.
Oh, during the day.
Yes, during the day. And so if they called you, they said, hey, so-and-so has been in this parking spot for 4 hours. They connect with you. I'm hearing you say there's not a whole lot that you can do if
I
you were,
can write the ticket, but they're gonna have to be the one to sign it.
they're gonna be the one to sign it.
And if they go to court, they're gonna have to be able to prove it.
Right. So.
Scratch it for not gonna
Yeah.
force it. It doesn't solve the problem down there, but it is what it is. If we can't enforce it, there's no reason to have it.
Well, it's enforceable, it's just a bit of a hurdle. So,
Okay.
it's more enforceable than saying, a business owner can park here, but not nobody else, because
No,
we're not gonna go around and try to figure out who
no.
owns what car. I'm driving my girlfriend's car today, and I'm this, Oh, no. Thanks a lot, Mike. I think that's all tonight.
Can you show the name, sir? For the record?
If it's gonna make more work, it's not worth it. Again, we'll continue to let Laura and others kind of push the DDA agenda and say, if you want your business to be successful, customers be able to come in, stop blocking your front door.
And stop blocking your neighbors. Stop blocking for the businesses, because they're all in this together. That's the right.
Right.
Together.
And, on that, if it was an ongoing problem and one business owner calls, hey, this guy keeps parking in front of my business, then obviously it's something we can monitor. We may not be able to enforce it that day, but the next day, we come in at 8 o'clock, the car's sitting there, and the car's still there, well, yeah, then we can write a ticket. Even then, I can already hear Dave Lacoste to bring my ear, how do you know the car didn't move during that 4-hour period? So, it's still a hurdle.
Burden of proof.
That's a good point. I'll hear you say strike it. What do you guys think? Strike it out.
Strike the 3 hours in one spot.
I think so too.
I'd be able to-
205, or sorry, 802. Between 2 and 5.
I think it's so weird. I think it's fine.
And this is all the way down to Union Street, not just Jefferson.
Maple Street.
Right, that one you're 78 feet things here.
No, that was just. That's just one that I think someone else brought up 78 feet, but it's. I can see where it's at.
Yeah, that was James's, that was when we rebuilt that area, again, you got the tracks, you gotta go up over the pump and back down, and then the intersection of Beagle, I think it just gets us to quote the
The safe.
right of way or the easement.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
it
Beagle.
gets them away from the intersection. and they have-
Monroe Street, South Monroe. Again, it's a class A road, it's not curb and gutter yet, and that's something, I guess, you know. We're talking. Zoning and all the sort of, you know, what can we do to make things better, Danielle, again. When we're talking about, you know, new subdivisions or road rebuilds, yes, we want to do complete streets, et cetera, but again, utilizing the entire right of way, you know. Making sure we've got good widths, we utilize that whole 66-foot right of way if we got it, do the sidewalk, do the parking, et cetera, do the curb and gutter. So that we're not dealing with this stuff down the line. But Monroe Street, obviously, main thoroughfares are major streets, we need to keep those clear. Beagle Street, main reason behind that is due to the railroad. I think we almost encroach on the railroad right away. So it would make sense to not have parking there. Beagle's not very wide there. And then Monroe Street. Up to Maple Street, obviously, you got kind of the railroad tracks and you've got the turn issue, the radius, that sort of thing. So that's the issue on that one.
There's no curb and gutter there. Right?
There is up to Beagle.
Yes.
Up to Beagle.
But the parking actually stops at Maple. So from Maple to the village limits, there's no parking restriction on North Monroe.
Should be all the way out.
I feel like there's signage there, but the ordinance, if you read the ordinance, it just says parking on North Monroe from US 223 to Maple Street is hereby prohibited, and then there's nothing. So I just wonder if that needs to just say North Monroe from US 223 to village limits, parking is prohibited. I just noticed that.
That's where, is it where Holden House that you guys?
If photos and
Oh. Okay, and
you guys all
Yeah,
across the
okay.
street, you got.
Maddie.
Yeah,
Manny's
yeah,
across the
definitely.
street.
we gotta
you know,
stop all the way out to the limit, you're absolutely right on. There's nowhere to go for along there.
I don't believe the sign either has Maple Street.
Mm-mm.
Some of our radar signs are out there right now, but.
So you're saying extend the no parking all the way to the village limits on North Monroe instead of stopping it at Maple?
Going past the church and all that out there, yes.
Which it's signed already, and again, for some reason, I'm not sure why those ordinances are not recorded or missing, but. Again, it's already, yeah, we're not reinventing anything or changing anything, we're just. Putting it on paper.
Any other Monroe Street comments?
You don't need to say anything like on both sides of the road or anything like that, in
No, I
Okay.
can just say whatever it is.
Mike, to address your puzzling question here. I have a book in my office of traffic control orders that are, some of them are probably 70 or 80 years old. The book is actually a historical document. Those TCOs are just a hodgepodge. They're typed out parking work, a lot of more parking ordinances or signage ordinances. But if you read it, it's kind of interesting. It kind of shows like a history of evolution of the village, in that respect, but to kind of answer the question a little bit, if you look at that book, which is probably 3 or 4 inches thick, those TCOs, they go back to the 40s and 50s, some of them. So that's probably how we ended up with this hodgepodge of ordinances that we have now.
Is that what's conflicting is the ordinance versus the TCO?
The ordinances override TCOs.
Because a lot of those we signed the TCO, much like.
There's no organization to those either, so.
Possible insurrection.
Yeah, we did look at them, but that's, again, I think we need to get it in here because then we can search it and we have it in front of us. Like if Chief or one of the officers is out in the field, I mean, it could take them a while to determine if it's even in there. It's,
Well, that's probably what because there's no parking all the way out, I'm sure that's somewhere, I'm sure it's probably in TCO
yeah.
rather than the ordinance.
It might be.
Yeah.
And much like the speed limit coming in at the waste for the water treatment plant, that used to be 45, something like that. And when Gene wanted it down to 25, that became a TCO. That wasn't an ordinance. So a lot of those updates for TCO.
And what is a TCO?
Traffic control,
Sorry.
Traffic control?
traffic control order. issued by the
Oh,
police department.
Can those override ordinances?
No.
They would not, okay.
They
So
were issued presumptive to an ordinance, like
Okay.
we saw there was a problem, hey, we need to throw a stop sign up here. The chief could issue a TCO and erect a stop sign at that location.
Okay.
And then the ordinance would follow normally.
That's what I said, it's a historical. If you go back to the very first one and see where signage and parking restrictions and one-way streets, it's just. It's kind of, if you're kind of geeky about the history of the village, it's kind of interesting to read through. But like Danielle said, for enforcement purposes, it's, we're not gonna be sitting in our car, thumbing through 300 pages trying to figure out which folks they were looking at.
So for North Monroe, the park, it should just get rid of the A and B and it should be prohibited from 223 all the way to the village limits.
Yes, if you guys are good with that. So Pearl Street is next.
That's the one.
Much
Much,
more,
much like what we have over on Franklin Street from Maple to the east. Is only allowed parking on one side, it's not park. There's no parking allowed on the south side, but you can park on the north side. Right now, currently Pearl Street from Union to the river to where it dead ends, there's parking allowed on both sides. And it's narrowed down through there as similar to what we have on Union Street. I would propose that we allow parking only on one side or the other. On Pearl. We have the 2 spots up here, 223 that are handicapped. We have no parking from Jefferson to Union because it is narrow in there as well. I would propose that we do the same on the southern portion of Pearl Street from Union to the river.
Pearl Street was built that way. When they rebuilt that road, yeah, the residents didn't want the large maples and stuff cut down, so the village did minimize the width on that road. I know at least to Union Street, I'm not sure if it does widen. It is tight. I drove that truck for that house fire and it's tight and it is a challenge. But the weaving is the worst part of it, kind of get between different cars parked on both sides. It's probably not gonna make the residents happy. Again, we're gonna make 50% of them happy, 50% are gonna be miserable, but I guess.
But those homes, I think that, Chief Ruger, you made a very, the age of the homes in that particular area, there are older homes as well.
Are there more homes on one side of the street there than the other?
Just at the very end,
Yeah, just the very end of the river end.
but there is no turnaround. We had to back that,
Right,
those fire
right.
trucks with the entire
I think.
block, so, yeah.
Wow. I think you make a very valid point here, I don't have a preference for the side of the street, I mean,
I mean, it is narrow, and there was one resident down towards the end that brought this to my attention a year or so ago. Because there's parking on both sides. It is, if you meet someone and there's cars parked on both sides, somebody has to wait. Not that that's a huge deal, because there's not a lot of traffic up and down there. Realistic. It's not a main thoroughfare to any other subdivision or any other road, but
My concern would be emergency vehicles.
yeah, emergency
that are
vehicles
needed.
would be the, be it police or fire.
Mhm.
I think we'd have any high-speed pursuits down that road, but
I
need to get fire equipment in and out. I mean, granted, it's a dead-end street. More than likely, the whole road's gonna be blocked anyways. There's gonna be nobody in or out, but it would definitely make it easier access for emergency vehicles down that road.
I agree.
Brent, how do you turn around when you're plowing down there?
And then, and that was
It's
Frank,
on- it's on
Frank
the
Riley's
east side.
driveway, that's
Just an
Frank
approach.
Riley's little driveway at that approach right there.
Well, would it make sense if we're having to pick a side? You know, again, I don't really like it, but east side only, because that way, if you're responding to a call or if you're plowing or whatever, you're heading kind of down. You're not facing all the cars parked on your side. It's
That's what I was.
The
trying
more
to
urgent
figure.
side would be.
That's what I
heading
was
into
trying to
the-
figure out.
There.
It would give you a larger turn radius if the vehicles are parked on the east side and on the west side. Wouldn't that be true?
You guys love being in a small town where we discuss this little nitty gritty stuff. Imagine sitting here in Chicago then.
Hey, Chief Rucci. Chief Rucci?
Yes.
If you're gonna restrict one side or the other, if you had like a fire, it's gonna be more difficult if you've got cars on the riverside of Pearl versus if they were parked only on the other side of the street, would it make a difference?
It's not gonna make a difference for us, but like Mike said, you know. us
You can only attack that
If we're
fire.
going into that part of the dead end.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're gonna be on
Yeah.
the west side of the road, so. The one thing I would suggest is maybe that corner at Union, back that up a little bit, so trucks are making that corner, and it'll make our lives a little bit easier, and it'll probably also, making that corner on Union. For the parking right there at that intersection.
We're not gonna pass anything tonight regarding.
Yeah, I've got all the
Does
changes.
that make sense to you, you guys?
Yeah.
More put on.
And that's okay.
So you want parking prohibited on the west side? Allowed on the east side.
Throughout the ingress of emergency equipment, fire employees. As Chief Rucci had mentioned, and
I think that'll get people time on Pearl Street to chew on it too, and if they wanna come address it, then. Maybe the newspaper will get that out real good for a while.
Well, I'll do another public notice as well, because we'll have to have our 15-day minimum. And I can work with Melissa too to see, and we'll do an email as well.
It's on that block, but. Well, from a safety aspect, that's what all of this is, it's about the safety and the consistency, I like Eric as well. If we're looking at it, we're gonna go ahead and look at that section down there as well.
Are you guys good with River Street? With Article 12.
Well, it's the same type of situation.
Yeah. Yep, and we were limited with the easement on that one due to the river and sidewalk, et cetera.
So based on that, I have the notes for all of the changes. I will get those made, I'll republish. I would ask and would recommend that you guys make a motion just to postpone these items until I can get the proper notices and corrections made. And I'll just schedule it for the next available meeting, to make sure we meet all of our requirements. And then, I don't know if you want to do this all at once, but I would actually just ask that we postpone the repealing ordinances as well until we get this one drafted. So I think you could make them individually if you want, or just to simplify it, I would just new business items 1 through Or did we say it was
10.
10? To postpone until the next,
10.
or till an available meeting, the next one or whatever. However you want to word that.
You got it written down?
No, I don't, but I
Okay.
can wing this one.
Wing it, Eric. Let's hear your wing it.
Make a motion to postpone items 1 through 10 to a later date. Allowing for notices to be given to the residents in affected in those areas.
Support. Motion Eric, second Tim to postpone items 1 through 10 on tonight's agenda. Allowing us to do more research and allow residents to feedback on which proposed changes. Unfortunately, I'm not Lisa, I good.
Yeah, it's fine.
All right, any further discussion? Hopefully, I'm assuming, we will get some feedback, and I hope people do have feedback. If, social media going, at least give Danielle a call, your chief call, give us a call, we can get some better information, so. If there's no further discussion, we'll follow.
Ken,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you Eric, for those maps as well.
They're really nice.
When you redo that, I'll revive them. You know, it's in-
Speaking.
already have them, so.
All right, so moving on to number 11, the purchase of a carbon slurry mixer for the water treatment plant. Being a critical piece of. But
Yes, so I am asking for approval tonight formally, but, this is one of those items. I did call Mike. He did, under our ordinance, our policy, I'm allowed to go to the president for emergencies. I don't know, we can function without it, and I did explain this to Mike, but it is, to me, it's a safety issue. So right now, our employees are hand mixing all of the carbon, which is kind of, it just goes everywhere. And it is 14 to 16 weeks out, so we're gonna have to continue at least for that period. So I didn't want to delay getting it ordered, because this is something we have to have. Nora did look all over trying to find it. We were only able to find it at the one company, so it is ordered, but I'm asking for approval. This was not in this year's budget. I'm not proposing an amendment at this time. I'd like to get a little bit further in the budget. We have enough money out of our capital projects, which is where this would be funded, because of the nitrate exchanger, which we'll have some more information coming to you guys on that soon. So I'd like to wait till we're a little bit closer to the end to determine if we need an amendment or not, but again, we did get this ordered, and if you have questions, let me know. And Nora did a little description in the agenda for us too. She could not be here tonight, but again, not wanting to delay.
I always appreciate her thoroughness with the background, and I also appreciate she states here, I do not need the field service, we will install the new mixers ourselves. She's always looking to save a buck. She really does, she's very kind about that. Thanks for introducing me, so, thanks.
Are they actually hand mixing now
Yes.
with a spatula or? What?
Probably like a.
It's fine.
Yeah, I don't know that it's a spatula, but. So they do come in, the 50-pound bags that get dumped in there. I'm not sure exactly what they're using, but I know that stuff, it's very fine, so it just, like Nora was kind of laughing or joking with me a little bit. She's like, well, we know where our cobwebs are now, because it just sticks to everything. But again, that's why I wanted to get it ordered, because one, the turnaround, and two, just the employees breathing that in. And they are wearing proper PPE and masks, but still, it just.
It's still gonna hang in the air for longer than.
Yes, exactly. That was,
It's a real fine powder.
how is the
Yes.
tank? Is it in good shape then? I mean, is it something we should look into as well? Because it's.
that would be a Nora question. I would not feel comfortable or confident answering that, but I will say Nora's really good. And not just Nora, all of our employees, but she's really good about, what her needs are and getting them in the capital improvement plan. And she's good at like looking out to not just the immediate, but kind of the next couple of years. So this was one of her items that she had requested for next year. Obviously, we didn't anticipate it breaking down. This year, we would have moved that up. So I would think if it is, she's got it already planned and budgeted for, but I can follow up with her and let you guys know as well.
Like we use a proposal.
But, okay.
For the expansion, or something.
Well, I move to purchase the STX-82 top entry mixer from Tesco for the amount of $23,695.
Support.
Motion one second, Ken to purchase the SDX 82 top entry mixer from HESCO for the amount of $23,685 for the water treatment plant. Any further discussion? If not, Lisa call roll.
Sherry,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes, motion carries. Up next would be the appointment of the potential DDA Main Street board member, it would be Ron Doolittle. We do need a formal application of that though, which we did never received. We received a lot of interest, but you should still fill out the.
Correct, yes, and I did talk to Laura about that. I usually do not attach those to council agendas because it's got their personal mailing address and phone numbers and things like that. I don't want to speak for her, but I mentioned that to her and I think she does have it now, but I will make sure that we have that for our records.
Cool. And DDA did recommend Mr. Doolittle as.
I move to appoint Brian Doolittle to take the open seat on the Blissfield BDA Main Street Board with a term ending June 30, 2029.
I'll support.
Motion got second, Sherry. To appoint Brian Doolittle to take the open seat on the Blissfield DDA Main Street Board with a term ending June 30th, 2029. Any discussion? Not, please call roll.
Eric,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes, motion carries. Moving on to reports. Anything from the police chief? Or for the police chief?
No, I'll let Emilio go ahead and address anything that we'd like to talk about, maybe.
I don't really have much, the only thing I have, and Daniel, like you told me to shut up, well, if we don't even talk about this, is we do have 2 open seats available as well. So if you guys know anyone, we are still taking applications, correct?
Yes.
We haven't had much interest in that, so if you guys know anyone that would like to join our board, we would appreciate that, or if you have any needs, you want Danielle and myself to contact them, that'd be awesome, so. Haley and Brandon are staying on until those seats are filled, so thank you too, but we're still looking to get those filled as well, so that's all I got, unless you guys have questions.
Spring soccer starts.
April 12th, we have 157 registrations compared to 119, I believe, last spring, so.
No.
Thanks,
That's the
sir.
only spring sport that you have, correct?
Yes, yep, for you, correct. Our adults volleyball is still going on for another 2 weeks.
And then, why don't you talk about our sponsorship, because that was a big deal. If you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I lose my,
Tell me what to do.
sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, Danielle and Gwen and I have met, we have outreached a few people, I can't think of the names on my head,
That's
that have sponsored quite a bit. And we're still outreaching compared to where we were last year, so we're happy about that, I think a few names that come to mind is on the wall.
So, we talked about it last week at our joint meeting, I know that, but just, I guess the big thing I wanted, to make sure that we have addressed is that that was a commitment that we had made,
Yeah.
probably about 2 years ago. Sherry and Ken, just wanted you to be aware of it for Parks and Rec. We were struggling with some of our sponsorship and, we weren't quite where we had been at one time, Parks and Rec. And it was something that we have really stated that was gonna be one of our goals coming up here in 2025 and forward, is to go ahead and continue, a little more driven with our sponsorships. Obviously acknowledging, finances are always a challenge, but, we have been moving in a positive direction, and I think that that's a really big boost. And then, of course, you guys heard from the joint meeting last week, that there are a number of new programs coming on as well, so.
Yeah, I think too that it takes quite a bit of time to build those relationships as well. So it's gonna be like, I know we're we've made some progress so far, but I think just over the years, it's gonna get bigger and bigger. Just because those relationships do take quite some time, as well, so I agree. Cool.
Thank you, sir. Also kind of Parks and Rec related, the Arch Bridge, the Rotary donation, those lights are on, those look extremely cool. Got a lot of cool feedback from those, a lot of good feedback.
Daniel's gonna go ahead, what the Rotary wants to do something special, because we talked about addressing it last week at joint. And they're gonna do something different, I guess.
Awesome.
Yeah, so they have some signs because that was funded through the Howard Sliker donation. So we have some signs for that, and then I think the Rotary's gonna kind of do a. I don't wanna call it grand opening because it's been lit up, but some kind of ribbon cutting or something, so I'll get that information. Out to you guys once we have dates and how we're gonna do that exactly, and to the public.
Thanks to the Rotary. Up next, water treatment plant. How are we doing? I saw the update regarding the sludge building. We got to, have we had any more vendors out there? We got a plan.
Yep, she put that in her summary, and updated that for you guys. So we've had all of the vendors that will be coming out there. Her and the engineers are going to meet. I kind of want to say this week, but don't quote me on that. I know it's soon. And then, she'll be bringing that information to council as well. So that should be, we'll have some more in the near future for you guys.
Are we thinking a potential build date, maybe next fiscal year, or?
I don't know that.
Okay.
It would have to be, it's not in this year's budget, so it would have to be budgeted for next year. Because this year we specifically budgeted the engineering and the studies to determine how we were going to move forward.
And then I guess my only other comment regarding the water would be the mixers and the Riga valves, et cetera. I mean, what do we got to do to see some action on this stuff? I know it's Eagle, I know it's county, whatever. I mean, we installed $27,000 worth of mixers or whatever to the water tower for Riga. We don't even know if they assist, if it helped. You know, it's our water line. We do the studies that we need to do the maintenance, and do the testing that we need to make it work. I mean, somebody needs to jump on Eagle and say, what's going on here? Let's.
Well, we have been in constant communication.
Yeah,
with
I'm
Eagle.
not saying that you're not, but I'm saying, what do we have?
Riga's Eagle representative is different than ours. They were out there, or I don't know if they were, or they were scheduling a visit to come look at that. And try to get on board, and our Eagle person is meeting with theirs at the same time and trying to advocate for us. Nora sent our representative a bunch of information. They asked about like time of water and things like, there's quite a few things, but all we can do, really, our hands are tied. All we can do is continue having those conversations and continue putting pressure on them and being that squeaky wheel. Outside of that, until they give them the authority to switch that back, because they were initially, we're on a 2-year, we've passed that time frame. But it's really an Eagle thing at this point, unfortunately, and will continue to be a squeaky wheel. That's,
Yeah.
well, I mean, we're just not gonna stop, but, and that's, outside of that, that's really our options. But Nora's very on top of that. I know she's
Yeah,
been
and
working
I'm
on
not
it.
faulting any of our staff. It's Eagle and those above.
And I will say, Ernie with Eagle, has been really good about getting back to her on things, and
His name is Ernie for Eagle.
Yeah.
Well, I thought that was a mascot or something.
so,
Okay.
yeah.
Thanks for that.
I know it's not what you want to hear, but that's what we can do.
Anybody else? Water treatment, wastewater?
Patrick, goes in, I see from, Steve's report here, to take the wastewater exam. That's obviously next level. That's gonna allow him to do a little more work, is my assumption.
It'll be his first certification,
Okay.
yes. So he is going for the first time. He is our newest employee.
And he's a new guy, right?
So yes, best of luck to him.
Okay.
He's got this.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Building, zoning? Say it.
If you have not done your zoning survey, you are on my list. You have until Friday. We extended it for you slackers. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah,
Speaking to the audience or council?
council.
Oh,
Please, if you have not completed that survey, please do that. If you don't know how to answer a question or you're uncomfortable, skip it. But at least we'll have some more information. We currently have 8 responses. My goal is achievable. It's 12 to 15. If we get 12, I will be happy. So we're not too far away. And I know.
Mine until she sent me that email.
I had another board member email back that they did theirs today too, but Mike already got an earful earlier when he came to the office, so he's getting it twice today.
What, he did his already or?
No, not.
That's why I got the earphone. But yes, that's gonna help, again, Maddie, it's gonna help the committee and what's the name that's doing the study?
Gibbles Webster.
To hopefully prepare that and get the bang for our buck. Again, that was a pretty expensive grant, so that should help.
And keep in mind, when you do this survey, that you don't have to include every single little detail. This is really the survey, it's the zoning audit survey. So they're just trying to establish kind of the basis for what are our concerns and areas of focus for them moving forward. We're still have a lot of steps following this where we're really getting into the weeds, but again, it's just helpful to have that information and know what our vision is moving forward.
Cool. All right, moving on, council discussion.
I have,
Go for it.
okay. Tree stump, I don't know if it's really an official tree stump, but by the pedestrian bridge. Remember how the 2 big cottonwoods were there? The one is totally gone, but Brent, there's still a hump of stuff there. Where those trees were, the big cottonwoods.
Some of that was, the state was supposed to come and clean it up.
That's what I thought.
Them were the state's trees, that's their right.
Okay, so do we know how to connect, or let me restate?
Yeah, we'll reach out.
Can we reach out to them
Reach
to
out
get
to
that
them.
flattened out? That would be awesome. Thank you. And then, in that same area, please, you know how we used to put the banners across the road, Brent? Do those poles have to continue to stay there? Or can we get rid of those poles since they no longer put banners, we're no longer putting banners on them because they look nasty?
I can get a hold of Dana at the state and see.
Can we leave because we're trying to replace them so we can utilize that?
I
So,
thought we
just for
were,
now.
I thought we were not trying to replace them.
Not for banners.
EDA.
It's that he's talking about a different use.
Oh.
I'm agree with you, Glenn, remove.
Well, they look nasty right now, but you gotta think about the
That'd be nasty, don't you?
Okay,
Let's wait, let's wait.
okay. I was just walking by there, I tried to look at it. Well, that's exactly, well, that's why Brett's saying take them out, I'm sure. Okay, I understand now. Thank you.
You got a new truck coming to protect you.
Okay.
Hang on.
It's in the states right away.
And then my third thing, I believe our speaker last week spoke about, some safe, I don't know, I can't remember.
Safe routes to school.
Yes, the safe routes to school. Could that help us with our sidewalks going on that stretch that we've been talking about along, North Monroe? Why are you guys smiling?
No,
It's old school, but yeah.
yeah, it will not. I have looked into it.
Okay. It won't, because we got a lot of kids out there. I mean, we got a lot of kids that, I mean,
It was a big hoopla when it was released,
Oh,
but
I
it
know.
really wasn't,
I,
didn't go through as much as
no, I know, but I didn't know.
complete streets and safe routes, and yeah, if there's a grant.
Yeah.
I think so.
No.
I did look into it. I can look again, but I looked at that, I wanna say Scott Abbott. It's been a little bit now. I can look again, but it did not,
It
for
was a
what
hot
we needed,
topic.
it was.
Long ago, but I don't correct when he spoke on that last week. Oh, that's, I haven't heard that in a while. Maybe it was something.
No, it's been out for a little.
I thought maybe it was a
while, but
combination of it or something.
I wish.
Oh,
I'll peek again just to make sure.
I'm done now. Okay, those are my 3 I got. I got 1 for 3. All right, we're good. All right.
Tim? Nothing, Eric, Tim, Sherry, good. Capital improvement requests, right? We want those staff,
Right.
correct?
Yes, they're due Monday technically, or Friday, I don't remember, but yes, they are due right away. You just, even if you give me the project, I can get the cost. If you have the cost, even better.
Ugly numbers that are being thrown a lot for some of this stuff, so yeah, that's a good wish list to prioritize.
You want something for that big old arch or something?
No, just
It's-
maintenance stuff.
It's any project for the village that you guys have, and it can be something you want done next year or in 5 years. If it's a 6-year plan, you could give me longer than that too, but at least the next 6 years. So if you have something, it's pretty well built out now. We redid this a couple of years back. So now it's carrying projects that are not funded forward and just adding newer ones. So it's each year getting a little bit less requests, new requests. But please get that to me. And it includes the steel truss bridge replacement. It includes lining the new pool. It includes
Skate park.
the skate park. It includes vehicles for police and DPW. But it's anything, the shuffleboards
Over
were part of
3 grand, is that
our,
what the number was, 3,000? Anything above,
yeah, anything above 3,000.
so. Again, it may not come to fruition, but it's sort of a wish list, so again, much like our joint sit down planning, what do we want to accomplish over the 2 years.
I mean, it
Definitely
could
kinda
be,
critical
like, I had a request for a flagpole, the new pool. And keep in mind, it doesn't mean it'll be approved, but it at least gets included for consideration and. When we.
Helps
get
Danielle
to it.
prepare the budget better too.
Speaking of the steel truss bridge, remind me, Danielle, did we get someone? You were in the midst of, connect with someone to revisit the bridge. Wasn't there something, we were- yeah, wasn't that what we were gonna do something? We talked about that, got you guys about a couple weeks ago, the engineer for the steel truss, did we have any scans?
So the engineer is no longer, that originally
Right.
did that is no longer in business, but I did find the company that installed it. I actually did follow up on that. I had reached out to them. It's a larger company out of Ohio. And they were going to route my call to whoever I needed to talk to, and then I never heard back. I know it's on my list to do, but I need to follow up
If you
on
could,
that.
I just, because that was one of the big things we need to know what we're gonna be doing with that bridge, so we can plan accordingly for it. So that needs to be, yes, addressed.
I'll
That's
follow
all you
up
got,
with
but
them.
different things that you gotta do.
Yes.
That meeting. Thank you.
Anything else? Sherry, got you. All right, second version, public comment, anybody? Student, hello, sir.
Well, it's not a comment as much as, I live on Sherman Street here in Blissfield. And, my name is Carl Studnicka. Who would I see about having a community gardens for, Parks and Rec? Okay. Thank you.
Chelsea.
Later.
That's-
Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else? Jackie?
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to next meeting. It's gonna be April 14th. What do you got for? Maybe, yeah, we can get a council before that.
Yeah, committee of the whole will be talking about trash.
We're getting off in trash or about
Talking trash. No, we will be talking about bidding out trash and recycling services and or. I really would like some feedback from you guys, how we want to, before we put it out to bid, how we want to do that. I've talked to some other communities about what they're doing. And I think they've got some good ideas. Hudson just awarded theirs, TMC renegotiated theirs, so there's some newer things that have been happening. But that's what we'll be talking about.
We will also be discussing one of the items we talked about at committee of the whole couple weeks ago.
Yes, it's gonna be kind of all tied together. And I think before you do anything with that, we'll probably have to have numbers and put that out to bid. But again, I wanna make sure when I put it out to bid, it's including the things we want. So, be a little bit of leaves, brush, recycling, a lot of trash.
They're meeting on April 3rd. On Thursday.
There is tentatively, yes, it's not, I am hoping that we're going to have the fee study presentation. But I right now do not have a draft, so that's why I'm still saying tentatively. I sent them some additional information today, I think they've got it nearly completed.
So when is the next committee of the whole? then? Next Monday or the 20, or is it gonna be the 21st, for meetings?
For sure, you will have one on the 21st.
Okay.
And I will let you know about the 3rd. I should know by the end
That's
of
the
this
Thursday.
week, but correct, that's the special committee of the whole Thursday one.
Nothing, 7th?
7th is planning commission.
Planning commission, that's very first.
Because
Second,
the,
sorry.
yeah, the
14th.
31st being on Monday,
14th,
we're.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not to drag it out, chief, sorry, any updates on weather sirens, et cetera, that kind of thing? I know you were here last. Any updates on that?
As of right now, there is no updates. We haven't been moving forward with it. Just looking at the cost and money with it, so it's just kind of set still right now. I know our supervisor's been working on it, possibly looking to see some funding out there, but we haven't gotten anywhere with it at this moment.
Appreciate that.
The sirens do still work at the station, so if anybody did hear them, we did have our tornado warning last Thursday. 5:55, so you may have heard it at the station, but that's about as far as we made it.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you being here. Okay. Anybody else? All right, I'm entertaining motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned at 7:38 p.m.
Support.
Motion Tim, second Eric to adjourn 7:38 p.m. Please call roll.
Gwen,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes. Yes.
Eric, Ken,
Yes.
Sound like,
Eric,
Yes.
Tim,
yes.
Yes.
Mike.
Eric, that sounds like Jerry too for a second.
Uh-huh.